I've always been ultra competitive and take things way too serious. I'm the sorest loser ever, and that's just who I am. I don't battle that, right? Like, I mean, if I'm being honest with you guys, like I don't love the idea of like shaking hands after games.
Oh, and welcome to Coaches on the Couch, the podcast where we dive into Profit coaches' passions, reasons for becoming a coach, and how their team is looking this year.
I'm Max,
I'm Brandon.
and we are your hosts. Today we have Coach Ronnie Turner, the varsity basketball coach here at Pomfret. Coach Turner played Division I basketball at the University of Maine, and right now he's working in the admissions office. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, fellas. Thanks for having me. Appreciate y'all.
So I guess we'll just start off really quick and just like when and where did you start playing basketball?
I started playing in so I lived in a community where there was a hoop, and so I grew up with two older brothers. My oldest brother is 4 years older than me, who was always really good, and I just wanted to be better than him. And his favorite sport was basketball, so naturally it just became my favorite.
And where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Tupelo. I was born in Lewiston, Maine, and then probably a couple months later I moved to Philadelphia and spent a majority of like my preteen years in Philly. And then going into high school, I moved to Lewiston and did my teenage years and actually went to college there as well.
How's that experience been?
Oh, wow. That's kind of a deep question. I mean, it's been challenging because, part of my family's in Philly and part of my family's in Maine. And so when I have breaks, I always feel guilty choosing one over the other. But there's a saying for people that live in Philly, like if you can live in Philly, you can live anywhere. And I truly believe that. The time of, taking the city bus to school and things of that nature have kind of helped me navigate different spaces and areas that I've lived in my life.
Mm-hmm. And like, obviously the podcast we're doing is Coaches on the Couch. And so I guess a question we both have is like, what made you want to become a coach?
So for me, I think I became a coach because naturally, like I couldn't play I could play, but I didn't want to put in the time and effort to continue to. So I played professionally in El Salvador for a year and a half, and then I went to Spain for a couple months. And then once I was kind of over it, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And so naturally just got into coaching that way because I go, well, I'm good at it. So of course I could be a good coach, which wasn't always the case. I didn't always feel like a good coach. But no, I mean, for me, I started coaching, outside of those reasons. I felt as though growing up, there was always more that me and my friends needed from coaches. And so that was kind of like the passion for me was I wanted to be the void or give kids the idea of what I had, in order to be a coach that kids needed. That's kind of how it all started for me.
Mm-hmm. And was there ever a coach that you like really want to build yourself off of and like?
Oh yeah. So when I was at UMaine, Bob Walsh he got hired as the coach my junior year. And Coach Walsh was a challenging coach. He was very hard on all of us as players. But like he entitled to nothing was like his mantra. And he talked about like winning anyway, right? No matter the circumstance. And those things kind of stuck with me. How he went about things, I go about them differently. But like I think those same mantras hold true for the things that I do. And so, he's definitely a coach that sticks out for me in my playing life. But also just that, like, he was the first coach that showed me things outside of the sport, right? Like, yeah, he's talking about the sport, but like these things apply to life. And he was kind of the first one to wrap my head around those things. So I definitely, like, when I got my first head coaching job at my old high school, what was it? Earn everything was my mantra, right? And like that kind of came from entitled to nothing.
How are some ways that you brought that mantra to the kids here at Pomfret, like the basketball team here?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think I've done things. I've had different mantras every year, and really just trying to keep things fresh. So like last year was hungry dogs run faster, right? And so just being hungry, motivated, and disciplined, to achieve the things that you want to achieve. What was my first year? I think was earn everything as well, but they didn't know anything about that. So, and this year I actually have something. I haven't shared it with them yet, so I can't share it here. After this weekend, I'll have something. OTF is kind of that's what our group chats call it. OTF means over the family, and so I have a little something for that for us this year.
Mm-hmm. And like OTF, like do you think that like family, like your team's like a family?
Absolutely. I think it's like one of the most key things when it comes to a team, right? Like, anything that involves me having to pass you the ball or pass you the puck, right? If I don't like the person I'm passing to, there's probably not going to be a lot of camaraderie and cohesion. So I can put up the perfect play, right, or have the perfect game plan. But if the guys on the team don't want to do that together, right, you're going to have a really hard time being successful. So, I put a huge emphasis on playing for the guy next to you, right? And if everyone's just collectively doing that, right, we all have a better chance to achieve, our team goals and also your individual goals.
And like, how's the season going so far, do you think?
It's going well, man. So, I'll be honest, coming into the season, I was a little worried, right? Just because, it was a group of guys that I feel are all different, right? And they're all leaders in their own ways, but, there wasn't one like alpha dog, right? And not to say that a team needs that alpha, but like I think alphas help bring things together and put people in, okay, like this is the line or this is the path that we're going. Whereas this year was like anybody could really do that. And I think the guys we have a competitive mindset. We play with an edge. And we get a little edgy and chippy at times, but I think it's all healthy in trying to win. And the guys keep that at the center of everything, which has been really good. And then, just helping younger guys and newer guys into what we're trying to do, hold them accountable in different ways, right? Like being stern, but also like celebrating them when they do something good. I think our guys have done that really well this year.
So when you guys go through a lot of adversity, like say it is a tough loss or not a great game, how do you guys keep your composure? Like,
how do we?
As a family, like,
yeah. So it was weird. So we went up to Millbrook. We lost. I think it was a 5-6 point game. Millbrook's number one team in our league right now. And like they were pretty down in the locker room, and I kind of came in with like clapping, like excited energy, and they're all looking at me like, "Coach, what are you doing? We just lost." And it's like, I think I always share with them like, when the guy gets scored on and he freaks out, he wants to like rip his jersey or something. I'm like, dude, you guys gotta understand, like, there's other good players too, right? Like, we're not like, if Steph Curry, LeBron James, and those guys can get scored on, so can we, right? If they can miss shots, so can we. So like, I think we as a group always try to put things into perspective, right? And say, hey, like, yeah, we want to be perfect, right? But knowing that perfect's not possible, right? And giving ourselves a little grace. So, it helps us remain competitive, but it also helps us, understanding the bigger parts of life of, sometimes things aren't going to go your way. And that's not because you didn't work hard. That's not because you didn't play well, right? Sometimes, in competitive sports, sometimes people are just better than you, or sometimes they executed better. So, a lot of conversation, a lot of open dialogue that we have. And I'm a coach that, like, I'm not always right. Right, like sometimes I make mistakes and I mess up, right? And so, like, something I can think back to right now. This is a long-winded answer, but we were at Deerfield playing. We were up 3. We were defending. I think it was like 10 seconds left, and I'm in the huddle talking about, all right, let's chase screens. And I saw one of the guys' faces, and they were like, it just didn't seem like they wanted to do that. So I'm like, oh, like, talk to me. What do you want to do? Like, oh, I think we should switch everything. Right. And I'm like, oh, does everyone feel good with that? And they're like, yeah. So I'm like, all right, like, tell me, everybody share what's happening right now, so to make sure we're all on the same page. And then boom, right? Like, it doesn't have to be my plan, right? Like, yeah, I have the final say so, if you will, but I also trust them. It's you guys, it's them out on the court, experiencing the things that they're experiencing. So a lot of open dialogue that we have.
Have you had any experiences like when you're younger, when times in games when you feel you're not living up to your expectations as a player,
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I was always super hard on myself. I still am. But particularly as an athlete, I was the quarterback of the football team, and I was the freshman that made varsity as a basketball player. So I was always expected to be really good. And I remember going into my was it my junior year. I wanted to score a lot of points in basketball. So I remember setting this goal of like, all right, I'm going to score. And I don't know why I picked this. I always think back to this. I'm going to score 17 points a game, right? And I think I ended up scoring like 17.4 or something like that, right? And I always think back to like, damn, what if I said I'm going to score 25 points a game, right? What would have happened then? But yeah, like, I've always been ultra competitive. So actually, as a funny story, my brother went to my rival school when he was 18. He had issues at the high school we were at. So he went to the rival school, and that like put a real wrench in our relationship. Like I mean, it's probably starting to repair now. I couldn't look at him the same, right? Like he played football that year. He killed us in football. It was his first year playing.
Is that his main sport? Or?
No, basketball was his main, but in basketball, like he dunked on us twice. He was in the paper. One of my friends was like pulling his shorts, and then like it was really hard for me because obviously my brother, I love him to death, but like, dude, like you beat us, you know what I mean? And any holiday stuff with my family, right? Like that was the conversation you get brought. Mind you, in that game, I think I scored like 19 points, and he had like 8, but his team beat us, and he had a couple dunks, so it was like nothing I did mattered at all, which is fine. But yeah, I've always been ultra competitive and take things way too serious. I'm the sorest loser ever, and that's just who I am. I don't battle that, right? Like, I mean, if I'm being honest with you guys, like I don't love the idea of like shaking hands after games, right? Like I don't love that one because I feel like you have to do it. It's not like you're choosing to do that, right? And I think the ultimate like compliment is like me playing as hard as I can against you. Like that's respect as a competitor, right? Not me shaking your hand at the end of the game. But that's also could be me just being.
I was a question about that, like the sportsmanship stuff. Like, what if like after a bad game, even as a coach or when you're younger, walking on that handshake line, like what's going through your mind?
I don't want to do it ever. Like, why am I doing it? I don't want to do this. Like, and I'll do it, right? Like, especially when I was younger. Like
how's the body language from you walking and stuff?
I have good body. Like, I'm somebody that prides myself in not allowing people to know how I'm feeling or thinking, or I at least try to be. And I was a kid and coach would line up and do it. I was always somebody who was respectful in that way, but inside I was like burning up. Like, dude, I don't want to shake this person's hand. Like, I mean, we just lost 1 and 2. Like, we just played hard against each other. That's the respect in itself. But
Who do you guys have next coming out?
we play Roxbury Latin tomorrow, and then we play Governors on Saturday. So we've played them. We've played both those teams each year since I've been here. I've never beat Governors since I've been here. So we definitely look forward to that. Not to say we're looking over Roxbury Latin. We actually went there. Was that last year? In the first half, it was horrible. I was like, it's one of those freak out moments as a coach at halftime where, you're grateful that you're not being recorded.
So like, how are the kids in the team like preparing for these games? Like, do they come together nicely?
I think we have something that's always been nice about our group, and I think this is just an attribute to the school, is like they're just close, right? Like, no matter what I'm yelling about or I'm mad about, right? Like, they're going to have a good time with each other. And it's actually something like, it annoys me at times, but it's something I appreciate about the kids, right? Like, whether I'm cranky or, pissed off about something, like, if they think something's funny, they're going to laugh, right? And as annoying as that can be, like, at the end of the day, I always put it in perspective for myself of, like, they're enjoying their time playing basketball. And, like, at the end of the day, like, obviously everyone wants to win, but, like, you want the kids to enjoy what they're doing, right? Especially the thing that they feel the most passionate about. And so they do that constantly. And, how can I be mad at that?
Well, we're going to wrap this up, but good luck and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Appreciate y'all. That's what you got. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Coaches on the Couch. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and learned more about one of your Pomfret coaches.
And don't forget to join us next week to learn some more How about one of our interesting coaches here at Pomfret?